Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Newman. My family, which is me and my wife Virginia, and our two kids, Silas and Oliver, have been members of Highland for about 2 years. So we're newbies, especially compared with most of the other folks who are speaking in this Pride Week video series. I also have to confess that as somebody who was raised Catholic, I've never been asked to do a devotional. The word makes me nervous, and I don't know exactly what it means. So I decided to ignore it and instead just tell the community a little bit about myself, the impact this community's had on me, and my thoughts about pride in relation to this community. When faith communities talk about LGBTQ plus inclusion, the words tolerance and welcoming and affirmation are often used. In my short time at Highland, I've really learned that there are differences between these words, and that those differences matter. I've spent most of my adult life as a lesbian who identifies as Catholic. I was raised Catholic. That's what my extended family is, and our social life is largely built around Louisville's Catholic institutions. I've always considered the Catholic communities that I've belonged to be tolerant, with occasional bouts of actual acceptance. I'm very lucky and blessed that my immediate family has always been welcoming and supportive of me and my family. But otherwise, the Catholic communities are sort of at best tolerant. And I've gotten quite used to it. I've gotten quite complacent with tolerant religious institutions. I'll say that one thing about Catholicism that has always kept me a little bit hooked is community. Like I said, it's my family's sort of social world, and to me, those are hard to separate. Religion, for me, belief in God is all about community. My parents had a plate on their wall when I was growing up. It was a quote by Thomas Merton, and it said, "In the end, it is the reality of personal relationship that saves everything." And as a young adult getting ready to go off to college and rejecting faith for the most part, I mocked this. I was going to be independent. I was going to make my own way. I wasn't going to just take care of people. So fast forward to now. When we started attending Highland and then ultimately joined, our intention was to find a welcoming community for our family. And we certainly have. It's not just that it's okay for us to be here. It's not just that we're tolerated. It's an enthusiastic welcome. And it's not just of our family. We see how Highland enthusiastically welcomes everyone. Watching how Highland shows up for Pride last year really let me see that, and let me see this enthusiastic welcome of all people. And just reaching out and trying to bring a community into this feeling of welcomeness. That's been very valuable to me. It's been very valuable for me to see my children see this enthusiastic welcoming. So witnessing that and being a little part of it, that makes Pride at Highland a joyful experience for me. This year, however, Pride is not a party. This is often a month that is full of fun and joy, but this year, in all years, but especially this year, we have to note and remember and emphasize how Pride started, which was a riot against police brutality that was led by trans women of color, and recognize that in this moment, that's what Pride needs to be. Police violence isn't new, and neither is racism. The two go hand in hand. But we're at a moment in our society where we're responding to this harm that is done on behalf of our government. It's imperative that we address that. We cannot let that go. We cannot celebrate while we are at this moment. Highland's ministers and leadership have been very clear that Black Lives Matter and that we have a duty to protect and care for one another. It's another reason I'm very glad and grateful to be part of this community. As LGBTQ people and a community that loves and supports LGBTQ people, we have to be a part of this moment and a part of this movement for Black Lives Matter. It's also not a particularly joyful Pride because caring for each other means staying away from each other. In addition to the anxiety of sickness and the unknown of the economy and jobs and the grief and distress of this pandemic, I think, is largely because community is so much harder when it's virtual or distant. Interacting with others is such a basic part of being human that these radical changes that we've had to make to our behavior are incredibly difficult. So I'm considering all of these things as I reflect on Pride and reflect on the Highland community. Earlier, I mentioned a Merton quote that my parents had on the wall. So as I was writing this and reflecting on the faith communities I belong to and what makes Highland different for me, I bothered to actually look up this Merton quote. And the full paragraph actually really speaks to me in a way that the quote on the plate never did. Do not depend on the hope of results. You may have to face the fact that your work will be apparently worthless and even achieve no result at all, if not perhaps results opposite to what you expect. As you get used to this idea, you start more and more to concentrate not on the results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself. You gradually struggle less and less for an idea and more for a specific people. In the end, it is the reality of personal relationship that saves everything. For this Pride Month, I'm thankful for the personal relationships that I'm building at Highland Baptist with my family. I'm thankful for and recognize the importance that we build through struggle and fighting for one another. And I'm thankful for the relationships that we build when we have to keep our distance from one another to care for one another. Thank you.